Welcome back, Commander.
Training.
I'm just gonna be honest here. I kind of forgot about this level. So if this sounds like it's a little out of place in the sequence, that's because I recorded this after recording some Soviet ones. Basically, we're up with a annoying task to have to deal with. One that lasts 25 minutes, so you're kind of in this for the long haul.
Training.
And while it might sound like I'm not too into this mission, I will say it is at least interesting. The idea that everything you have, minus a couple buildings, are all fake is, from a storytelling portion, nice. It's neat. You know, the Soviets actually have a reason to go after this base because, well, 3 war factories nearby kinda puts you on edge.
Training.
Another issue we have is that, well, not only is most of our base fake, but we can clearly determine that we have no income. So anything you build is kind of the only thing you can build. Personally, I prefer going with the mechanic. As we've seen, they're already very useful. And, I mean, there's no real reason not to go for a mechanic. If it's that, one saving grace, then, why not? Really, if you're going to be spending all your money on repairing your few light tanks, you might as well get a mechanic. Especially since you start off with a medic, so it's not that much of a risk anyways. Sadly, one thing that's really annoying about Command and Conquer, or Red Alert in particular, is that I never feel like I can destroy bridges really quickly. And that's only like with certain units. I don't know. Is it a placebo effect if I always kind of feel like rocket infantry just does that much better a job at destroying a bridge than a light tank does? I can't imagine it has something to do with like fire rate or just general damage. Like maybe there's some sort of hidden stat or something. But to be honest, I've never put too much attention into it. Oh, and well, here's kind of a problem that it's sort of the reason why I never bother. Like, I try not to explore, and this is what happens. So, sadly for me, I kind of woke up the Soviet base. I don't know if they actually start producing now because of it, or some other trigger. But, well, we'll see that there's something kind of particularly interesting about this whole thing. Another problem too is that I just mentioned how like exploring is really bad, and then the game kind of expects you to explore just so that you can get money, because there's numerous crates spread around the map. Now, maybe it's one of those things that you should just like wait until later, sure, but it's annoying to say the least. There is one constant in this level, however, and that's the fact that because of the landing craft at the top left, I'm given, or I was given, 4 tanks and a mechanic. And for whatever reason, the AI just constantly sends its MiG fighter against my 1 tank that's still up there. Thankfully, a mechanic can basically repair a MiG, even at a very close range to its airfield. Here's another problem with the AI, that being that the AI is really good at just like mirroring your moves, So what ends up happening is your light tank can't really get away from a V2 sometimes, if you're trying to fight it anyways. So you have this like really crazy scenario where the V2 follows the light tank, but a light tank can't destroy the V2 fast enough. And if you don't kill the V2 fast enough, it reloads and almost one-shots a light tank. So you kind of have to constantly juggle between taking a shot directly or not. As always, the fact that you have a mechanic really helps. If you didn't, I don't think any of my light tanks would have survived, and that's without them like exploring the map.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Waiting orders. Yes, sir.
I think this mission perfectly sums up my feelings or attitude towards fake buildings. That being that they don't really have any use other than from a storytelling standpoint. You could technically always fake it out, if you played your cards right. But unless you just happen to get, unless you play mind games against a human opponent, you're not really fooling anybody. And on top of that, like at what point can you really affect the game with a couple of fake structures, which, I mean, they're very weak anyways. They don't have high health pools, so they just blow up anyways. I guess I'm probably just overthinking it, but it just doesn't seem like it's worth any sort of investment if you actually play this against other people. I don't know what I did to trigger like so many infantry and enemy units coming my way. I have a feeling it has something to do with the 2 nuke trucks I have, which is going to really suck if something actually happens to them. Oh, that's something that you should also take into account. You're not given money when you actually start out. So you kind of have to keep a reserve of money for an ore refinery. Because if you don't, you kind of just immediately lost. I guess technically, depending on like what and how much you save, you could sell all your fake buildings. I'm not sure how much money that would get you, but it's at least some way to recoup your costs. Sadly, this mission's very drawn out. There's not much you can really do to prevent that. The way that the mission plays out, it's just you're waiting for a timed objective to finish, and then you're waiting to build stuff to then trigger just a regular build-up procedure. And there's no way to really like make that exciting. It's just, your default. It sucks that you're only given destroyers on the eastern portion of the map. It would have been neat if maybe they'd given you like a cruiser, and maybe you just kind of had to do as much as you could before it was sunk by the various air units. Instead, you just have a couple destroyers that honestly don't really provide too much. It's just not the kind of map that really shows off its strengths. And as always, I send in a spy just for him to pretty much just get taken out immediately. And sure, you're given nuke trucks, but the other issue is that, well, nuke trucks can only do oh so much. So you kind of have to beat down the defenses a little bit anyways, just to get a couple nukes, or just get your nukes in the first place. And I was talking last time about how, or at least there were posts in the thread talking about how nuke damage is weird. And I kind of have to agree, considering it took 2 nukes to take out that flamethrower tower. There is... I can't recall 100% if there's a big difference on how far a unit is to the center of a nuke. But one thing to keep in mind, usually distance isn't the majority factor. It's actually the unit type. Nukes, among other things, just take less or more damage based on the damage type. So, as you might imagine, a flamethrower would do more damage to infantry just because of the nature of fire versus a person. I wasn't expecting destroying the enemy construction yard to actually give the sell all command, so now I just kind of have to scour the map and find the last enemy unit. And, of course, they're just sitting there.
Mission accomplished.
Commander, or I should say General, are you still on duty? Go home. Have a beer. You're a hero. Hell, we're all heroes.